Here with Chaplain David Trogdon. David, tell us a bit about what we can do to help folks as they're coming back from like Iraq and Afghanistan. What can like the regular person do to help folks out with those issues?
Well, I think it actually starts before they get back. Staying in contact with them, but especially their families. And I can speak for myself, my own experience. I've deployed 3 times and getting ready to go back here next year. And my greatest concern while I was deployed, and a lot of the soldiers I talked to, is how's my family back home?
Mm-hmm.
And so contacting that family, maybe even once a week, having a support group or a network for the family. If it's just a phone call once a week to the family saying, how are you doing? Is there anything you need? We're praying for you. We're here for you. Because I know with my wife, next year she's going to be by herself, and maybe up to a year. And there's going to be lots of things that can pop up, because she always says when you leave, everything goes wrong. And it's kind of hard when I'm in Iraq over instant messenger or over a phone call to try to fix everything that's going on back home. So when I know my family's taken care of and loved and supported, that helps me when I'm deployed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it starts there.
Okay.
And then when you get back, I think realizing some of the new normals that are going to be there for that soldier and their family. And I remember coming back, it's really hard to be in Iraq or Afghanistan one day and be home the next. And the last time when I came back, Connie caught me in a restaurant. I was just constantly looking at everybody. It was really crowded. And she said, what are you doing? And I didn't realize I was doing it, but where I had been, a crowd was a bad thing. And you never knew what was going to happen. And so it took me a while to kind of adjust to being back home. In World War II and before that, it was a little bit different in that, like when our soldiers came back from Europe or Japan, they were on a boat for like a month.
Yeah.
And they were sitting around talking to their buddies, kind of processing and getting that out of them. And so it was, might have been a little bit easier. But now with technology and, we're going to be in a deployment and in a combat theater one day, and that same day we may be home.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a hard adjustment. And so driving a car, things like that, and being overwhelmed just by all of the aspects of being home. And so understanding that it's going to take them some time to be able to adjust to life back home. And I think they need to understand that too. And as much as you can normalize their behavior, and one of the things I do with soldiers when I talk to them is I'll tell them many times when we talk about some of the combat stress issues, well, I got bad news for you, you're normal.
Yeah.
And, because no one wants to feel labeled, or no one really likes being different in a bad way. And I had a soldier who was wounded, and I was visiting him in the hospital, and he had been in IED 3 days before in Iraq, and he was upset because someone had mislabeled him as having PTSD 4 days after the incident. And he was telling me, I'm having nightmares and I'm having trouble sleeping and I don't want to eat and I'm angry. And I said, well, good.
Yeah.
And he looked at me kind of like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, you got blown up.
Yeah.
If you can go through that and be able to sleep and eat and not have any issues, then you do have a problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so being able to let them know it's okay.
Yeah.
You've been through a life-changing experience, and there may have been a lot of trauma during that deployment, and they're going to have some baggage, they're going to have some issues, and that's totally normal. And I think one of the important things too is letting them know you care.
Yeah.
And then giving them someone to talk to. And the combat stress is in there, the trauma is in there, and it's going to come out one way or another, and many times it comes out in bad ways. And that could be the nightmares, the sleep issues, the self-medication, alcohol and drugs. And so it's going to come out. And the best thing you can do is allow that stress and that trauma to come out in positive ways. And a lot of that could be writing. But an important thing is them being able to talk to someone. And the more they can talk and get that out, the better they're going to be. And the best people for them to talk to is someone who understands their experience.
Mm-hmm.
There are things I'll never tell my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there are things I'll never tell anyone else in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But when I talk to other soldiers, it helps me.
Mm-hmm.
And so finding them someone who maybe has some shared experience. It may not have to be the same deployment.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be someone who's been in Iraq or Afghanistan or even in the Army. It may be a Vietnam vet,
Yeah.
or someone else. And so the more you can get them to talk, the better they're going to be. And understanding and helping them to understand, especially like with anger issues.
Yeah.
That's normal too.
Yeah.
And that I have changed.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not see the change, and that goes back to the families.
Right.
My wife has to deal with me every day.
Yeah.
And whether it's the combat stress issues, the TBI issues, the mild PTSD, which I do have supposedly,
Mm-hmm.
she sees that every day, and I don't have the patience I used to.
Mm-hmm.
And things do make me angry. And when you're dealing with life and death every day,
Yeah.
it's hard to deal with what I call the stupid things.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
things that really don't matter, because no one's dying.
Right.
Why get
So upset over that.
so upset over it? And but that gives us a hard time sometimes.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of support for the family,
Definitely.
before and after,
Definitely.
and helping folks realize, hey, you'd be expected to have nightmares,
Mm-hmm.
and having folks that talk to, and probably even folks that just regular people in the community be non-judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
and you haven't been where they've been, and